Season 2, Episode 11 of the Hall of Fame show. Evan and we've got some ideas, and we kind of prepared. Sort of, kind of.
Sort of, kind of, yeah. It gave me something to take my mind off the fact that the Celtics traded for Evan Fournier, so now don't have a chance to be. I'll be like the third highest scoring Evan in Celtics history, so it's very upsetting to me. I was tied for number one up until we had Evan Turner a few years ago, but now it's very likely I'm going to fall to third. It's awful. So
this is sort of why I hate Kirk Heinrich.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That and he had a very punchable face.
He now that you bring it up, he kind of did. We might be talking about punchable faces because we're going to be unveiling today two new little regulars on this show, which we'll get to. We'll be talking about the death of an NBA legend and lots of additions to the WWE Hall of Fame, which used to be one of my favorite things. I'll explain later on why it isn't. But we got to open with our big creation, 1 week in, the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. One thing we didn't talk about last week, Evan, is people can vote on coaches and contributors.
Yes. So coaches are pretty self-explanatory as to what they are. Those are people who coach teams. But can you explain what contributors are for our, what categorizes a contributor? Or what would make someone a contributor for our viewers at home?
Yeah, and it's all over the board, really. I mean, it could be an owner, who's coming to mind right now? Jack Kent Cooke. I don't know why that's the first name that came to mind, but former owner of the Washington football team, Los Angeles Kings, the Lakers. Very influential person in that category. Or it could be Dr. James Andrews, who you may know because he probably fixed your favorite athlete's elbow or knee or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Marvin Miller is there, who basically was the lawyer who broke the Major League Baseball and gave us all free agency. Who else we got? We got the Sables.
Yes.
Ed and Steve from NFL Films are there.
Be a scout like Gil Brandt.
There are a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. So there's 100 different
Gil
that
Brandt,
you can pick.
Yep. Bill Nunn, who's selected in Football Hall of Fame this year as a scout.
Yes. So a lot of really interesting, actually one of the more interesting ones too, a late addition because I had forgotten all about him. I'd forgotten his first name. I apologize. Mr. Zamboni. Oh, yes.
Yes. Still, the Zambonis are still being made in Compton, California, in the city of Compton. That's what Zamboni's factory is. Isn't that weird?
So the biggest thing out of hockey is straight out of Compton?
Straight out of Compton, yep. The factory, same place it's always been. Kind of amazing.
That's awesome. Why not? Why not Compton?
Yeah.
I don't know how to segue out of that.
Well, here's how we segue. So just so you guys know, we're getting quite a few people voting on the athletes, and we're having some people vote coaches and contributors, but just know they're there as well. Mm-hmm. Make sure you vote for that as well. We're going to I think we have 100 in each category, right?
Yes, 100 in each category. And you can vote every day.
Only 5 are getting in. Yep. You can vote for up to 10 in each category, but only 5 are getting in out of each category.
Right.
So just the idea that, if I'm just picking 5 coaches for the heck of it off the top of my head. So let's just say, Red Auerbach from basketball. From baseball, we'll pick, we'll pick Joe Torre. From hockey, I don't know if we ever. Well, I guess the hockey would be Herb Brooks is probably going to be the leader for that, I'd imagine.
Herb Brooks.
For football, we'll pick Vince Lombardi, and we'll just throw John Wooden in there as the 5th one. Mm-hmm. Just think of that's a ridiculous top 5. Just think of all the other coaches out there who are not in that top 5. You'd be like, wait, where's Phil Jackson? Where's Bill Belichick? Where's Bear Bryant? Where's you just keep going through over and over the people who would be eligible, and Mike Krzyzewski, and are just not there. It's going to be crazy how tight that's all going to be.
I think
I'm excited for that category.
when we set our committee up to replace those 5, holy crap. Because the people I felt to leave out were legends in this first 100. It is absolutely insane. Just some of the people who just really shaped everything. And it doesn't really matter what the sport is. They're there. And I can't wait to see how this sort of goes forward. The contributors one is actually the one I'm really interested in. Just where's that going to go? Because that could go anywhere. It really could. Some people I could see getting 0. We could have thousands upon thousands of votes, and some people might not get anything. I have a feeling that one's going to be very top heavy, but I don't know. We'll see.
We shall see. Yeah. It'll be interesting seeing people, like if you have, for contributors, for example, if you have like a whole bunch of Patriots fans voting Robert Kraft or a whole bunch of Lakers fans voting Jerry Buss, or like just like it's incredible, like the names that are there, whether just a fan base gets behind it and just like, hey, we're voting for our guy and getting him in. So
it very well could. Or look at Al Davis, for example. There could be a lot of young Raiders fans who don't really understand what Al meant to that team. They just remember the guy who said, "Wait, how fast can he run? Sign him."
Al Davis, by the way, also from Brockton, Massachusetts. Well, with Rocky Marciano and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He's probably the third most famous sports person from Brockton. So, anyway, random piece of trivia right there. But yeah, I remember though. I always think of him because it's one of those things that as you get older, your perspective of age changes. So he was born in 1929, and he passed, I believe, in 2010. And so my dad was born in 28. My dad had me when he was 50, so my dad was much older. But I remember Al Davis for most of my life, for like my teens into my 20s, looked like he was going to die for like the last 15 years he was alive. And when he finally passed, I think he was 81. And my dad said to him, "Oh, he was just a young man." I thought to myself, that is a different perspective on things.
But, one thing that regardless of the age, we will all have the same perspective is that Mark Davis has a bad haircut.
Oh, yes, very much so. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know who is advising him on that. But that is whether he has lost a bet, whether he is unaware he has hair, whether he's just like doing a big thing to get one of those like monk tonsures from like the 1500s, they Friar Tuck, they shave the back of their head while have the long hair going on. I don't know what's going on with that, but he needs help with his hair.
It's like he does it on purpose.
I'm not being mean.
No, it's not mean at all. It's bad hair. It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean that guy's a multimillionaire, if not a billionaire. Like, he's got to have someone advising him on that.
Well, maybe that's the whole point. It's like maybe it is a bet. It's like, I'll bet you that, because obviously they're making wages far greater than you and I are. We just have the random beer here bet, which may never get paid off because we may never meet.
It's entirely possible.
Right.
So, well, maybe at least outside of a jail.
Oh, there's that. Well, I don't have
I just wanted to say that.
Well, I don't have a record in this country. But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it could be like $100 million bets. Like, even with this haircut, with my bank account, I can get this model.
Entirely possible.
I can't.
It could also be like, it could be a Samson and Delilah thing too. Like, he has some special power. Like, if he cuts his hair, he loses control of the Raiders.
That could be too. Or he's just completely oblivious.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
But it's probably the last thing. It's just, rich people are weird.
That's true. That's true. I mean, like, it kind of makes you think here because the Raiders have been good. They've been bad. And they've been downright ugly. See what I did there?
Oh, man. Look at that.
Yes. Because this segues into...
we have some segments you want to talk about.
Well, I mean, you've been doing the last few weeks the anti-sportsman of the week, but in our bit of preparation, and here I got this ready here. Huh? Preparation.
Wow. You told me you were going to make. I thought you were going to make the sound effect with your mouth.
Well, I was okay.
No, that's impressive.
Well, this is how it would go. See, the first half sucks, but the second half I think is okay.
Yeah. Well, and Morricone would be very, very, Morricone would be very, very proud of your effort there. So.
More likely he'd be saying, "Who the fuck are these guys?"
So, yes. Well, I'm sure wherever he is, he's listening to our podcast from the great beyond. But anyway, so the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, I thought I was being just too negative in terms of just who the biggest jerk of the week is. I want to bring some positivity in here as well. Mm-hmm. And there's always a runner-up for who my biggest jerk of the week is anyway. So I figured we'd get that in there. So we're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly, or the good and the bad and the seriously. I'm not quite sure which one I want to stick with, but we'll do ugly for now.
Sure.
So let's start with the good. Our good sports person of the week is not surprising anyone. I'm going to start with the New England Patriot here. But I'm going to start with one of our backup New England Patriots, our sixth-round draft pick last year, Justin Herron, the offensive lineman, who broke up a attempted sexual assault in Tempe, Arizona last week. I don't know if you saw this.
I did.
Yeah, there was a 30-year-old guy pushed down a 71-year-old woman at like 11 o'clock in the middle of a park in Tempe, and he was walking by along with another man named Mr. Murray Rogers, and they stepped in and basically Justin Herron, being a huge dude that he is, scared the crap out of the guy, got him to sit down and wait for police to arrive and save the lady from this attack. So we have too much negativity. When we have someone who breaks up a crime for once, I think we need to celebrate that.
Absolutely.
So the good of the week, Justin Herron, backup offensive lineman. Who knows if he's going to make the team with all the guys they've signed this offseason. But backup offensive lineman for the New England Patriots. And Murray Rogers, who helped them out. Good on you.
For sure. I think that's a great place to start. If this becomes a weekly segment, I think it could. But with a good...
I think it could.
Yeah, I think so. Well, with every Clint Eastwood, we need the Lee Van Cleef.
Yeah, so the Lee Van Cleef in this situation, as much, again, as I want to just rip on the NCAA for being the NCAA, they at least seem to have realized that they're a ridiculously lopsided and sexist organization this week, or at least pretended to. So instead, I'm actually going to go to another league that usually gets things wrong, but got this one right, finally. Our bad of the week is Mr. Tim Peel, the fired NHL referee, who one of the, I want to say the Scott Foster of the NHL referees, like one of those guys who gets a lot of people complaining about him. Put it this way, the only referees you know about in hockey are like the ones who are around a lot or the ones who are terrible. Mm-hmm. So like, you know about Andy Van Hellemond because he did games for like 35 years, right? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But I only knew Tim Peel because everybody complained about him. Very much like, I actually was listening the other day and someone said, Scott Foster is one of the best referees in the league. And I'm like, oh my God, the NBA is doomed if that's the situation. But Tim Peel was refereeing a game between Nashville and Detroit. The Nashville won the game 2-0, but he whistled the Nashville forward Victor Arvidsson for a tripping penalty when it was pretty clear that the defenseman John Merrill basically went down, embellished it, and Peel knew it. And he had a ringside TV microphone picked him up saying, it wasn't much, but I wanted getting effing penalty against Nashville early. He basically was looking to call a penalty on Nashville. because I don't know. He had a bet on them getting an early penalty. I don't have a good answer for that. Now I know that
he was trying to even shit out, though, wasn't he?
All the time.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I think that's what it was. It was like one of those makeup calls. But and we know this shit happens. But I've never heard anyone sort of admit that live on a hot mic before.
Yeah.
Which just goes to one of those things that you know what happens, and we hate it. Just because you screw up something doesn't mean you have to screw up the other way. But it happens in all sports. Yeah. I despise it. And actually, I was surprised you didn't make this the ugly, but then you have such a good one for bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, this is bad. So, I mean, he was retiring at the end of the year, so he was basically a month and a half away from retiring. But they put him out the pasture a little bit early. So goodbye, Tim Peel. Nobody will miss you. And if you have to go out, you might as go out for something as memorable as that. But finally, I'm going back to Massachusetts for my ugly of the week. So I want to tell you a little bit about football in Massachusetts, high school football. It's not really that big a thing most of the places. You don't have a ton of professional athletes in football or coming out of the state of Massachusetts. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They get mad at me if I don't say it correctly. One of the 4 Commonwealths in the United States. But there are several high schools that are historically really, really good. One is Everett High School, who has a real stadium and has the 49ers uniforms. I think I talked about them. They had a guy who played for Kansas City Chiefs, Omar Easy, was a running back my senior year and came to our high school for some reason, got injured in the first quarter, and then sat out the rest of the first half, and then in the second half ran for 275 yards. That's one of the big high schools. But one of the other big ones is Duxbury High School. Duxbury is right on the water, right between Boston and the Cape. And they have a program there that is, it's just about the best in New England. They and Everett are probably the 2 best. Probably BC High as well. But those are the big schools in this. So they have a coach, Dave Mimeron, who had his team using words. So instead of right, they used the word rabbi. I'm not sure what they used for left, but they had their calls. You know how Peyton Manning used to say Omaha, things like that?
Yeah.
At the line, they said Auschwitz and Hitler as their calls, among other things.
Why?
And until they had a game where they won a game, I think 39-0, and the other team's players were like, "What the heck is this?" And he ended up, despite winning multiple championships, I think he's won 6. He's gone undefeated a couple times. They fired him this week for unnecessary anti-Semitism, and apparently no players on the team had any issue either. What is this about? What possible reason, other than just being a jerk, would you have for using Auschwitz as a change plaything as a line?
You know what? I don't know. It seems year after year. Well, I shouldn't say year after year. There's always been this fascination with this type of culture, and look at some of the new wave band names. If you and I are both fans of Joy Division,
yeah,
the name's origin, and maybe we won't go into what it is. We'll let people Google that on its own. Isn't exactly the most welcoming. I'll leave it at that. I really don't want to go into where it comes from, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my countdown this year, it ended because I was having trouble writing about Rammstein.
No,
and where to put them. I legitimately have had Rammstein 90% written for 3 months now, but I just don't know what to do with it because of the name and whether they're one side or other side. I just don't know what to do with it, and that's why everything kind of ground to a halt this year. There are all sorts of Anyway.
It's so colossally tone deaf, and I don't understand. And I guess because of it's generations apart, but you've got presumably older people who are educated, or educators, I should say, in this capacity. They know if someone hears this, they're going to get in shit. I just watched the dumbest, or what I thought was the dumbest thing. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I've said this before. I really hate extremism, and so I'm not a big fan of cancel culture. But when I say that, you rightfully so say, well, there should always still be consequences, but if deserved. And somehow I went on a YouTube rabbit hole, and 2 weeks ago, this weather girl. And so it says, she apologized for a cat video. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what the hell was it? It can't be. It's got to be something so asinine because we've gone so far left that it's probably nothing. What, did they name the cat Hitler and she mentioned it? Okay, so she said, well, here's our cat of the day, and here's Kittler, which was a white cat with just this black marking over the lip.
Yeah.
And okay, and that one's okay, shit. I thought I stand corrected. She should apologize for that. How the hell did she not catch this? And there she is saying, "Why?" He kind of looks like Charlie Chaplin. Jesus Christ! How did you not pick up on this? And some people just don't.
Yeah.
Don't know. But you know who I thought it was? Because I saw this story, but I didn't know that it was in Massachusetts. I thought, because you told me it was going to be something with Massachusetts high school sports, I thought it was the Massachusetts kid who challenged Brian Scalabrine one-on-one and got destroyed.
Oh, no. That's a routine thing. I know that guy, he lost 11-0. Mm-hmm. And Scalabrine just absolutely destroyed him. But that was a thing for a while, where people would challenge Scalabrine thinking that he was this absolute scrub. And in NBA terms, he was. But I think he challenged I think it was 4 different guys, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And he won those games by combined 44-6. Mm-hmm. Playing to 11, he won this one by 11-0. So I guess it's 55-6. So that's something I'm used to. And I don't think someone getting challenged and getting their butts kicked by Scalabrine's been retired for almost a decade now, right? Close.
I think so, yeah.
So a guy who's in his mid-40s who's a professional athlete beating high school kids, high school kids don't know any better. So I'm not going to hold that against him. Well, they don't know any better not to challenge a professional athlete. They should know better not to yell out Hitler as a way to change your call up the line. So... But
especially right now, if the one thing that if you're under 20, you know way better than you and I would assume it's social media. But again, what do I know? What do I know? So I think, though, with Kittler, that might be something that Vince McMahon and the WWE would use. Here's my segue. There's a lot of WWE Hall of Fame news.
Yeah, including for the first time I can remember, somebody taking themselves out of a Hall of Fame before they even were inducted.
Yeah, Batista, Drax the Destroyer. He was scheduled for the 2020 class. I'm not even sure how they're even doing this. I thought it was a virtual ceremony. I could be mistaken on this. But he just said, just induct me in a little bit later. And he would have been the headliner, and that's probably not the worst thing because they can sell quite a lot of tickets, I would think, with Batista as the headliner, former 6-time, I believe, world heavyweight champion, Guardian of the Galaxy, and he
was just in a movie that I watch with the kids called My Spy.
How was that?
He was working with the CIA. It was very enjoyable. It was not a good movie, but it was an enjoyable movie. So,
yeah. And yeah, I said right before we got on,
Yeah.
I'm going to do a vent here. Usually I get so excited at WrestleMania season. I'm not. Wrestling just sucks, Evan.
Why?
Because when the wrestling is good, it generally sometimes it just doesn't even make sense anymore. Not that it ever did, but it's a pretty simple story. Good guy goes up against bad guy. They keep changing it too many times. Who's good, who's bad. Moves don't make any sense. Almost every match, you're going to have a high flyer jump over the top rope and just happen to have 10 guys there to catch him. Good thing they're there. I'm not entertained by it. It doesn't make sense to me. There's too much of it. I think that's the biggest thing. It'd be one thing like when during the 90s and you'd have like one show from the WWE, one show from WCW, and they'd go on against each other. Monday was wrestling night. Now every night is wrestling night. I don't care. The matches that they've got set up for WrestleMania are so... It's almost like it was like a random name generator. They didn't put a lot of thought into it. And almost just the way it's looking now. There's 3 names that that they announced this week. 3. You can't stagger this out. It's just basic television 101. And I do have some strong opinions on these 3 names. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was surprised at that too because I think I saw that they were going to be honoring everybody on the 6th of April. Mm-hmm. And like they had just announced people. I was like, that seems really, really, really fast. So...
It is. It's like they're not putting any thought into this whatsoever, or they're just scrambling. I don't know why that is. I don't know if Vince, who's pretty much the main decider on this, is just go. I don't know. I honestly don't know why they're doing something so obvious that you can stagger as a week by week by week announcement. But they didn't. They announced 2 in the same day. 2 giants, 2 people who were listed over 7 feet, one who really is, one who isn't. Any thoughts on Kane?
Yeah, he is. I know they don't really have first ballot Hall of Famers in the WWE, but if they did, he should be first ballot unanimous Hall of Famer for the WWE. So,
what he overcame to sort of get there. Did you see some of his early gimmicks before he was Kane?
No.
All right. So his debut in the WWF, then named WWF, was as Jerry the King Lawler's personal dentist, Isaac Yankem.
Okay.
Yeah, from Decatur, Illinois. Get it? Decatur?
Yeah, got it.
A year later, they package him up as the fake Diesel because Diesel, who was played by Kevin Nash, went to WCW. So they said, hey, we got Diesel and Razor Ramon. They took 2 guys and just dressed them up as Diesel and Razor Ramon. So he was the fake Diesel. So this is one of those things where third time really was the charm. Kane, he played that for 23 years. He was actually just in the last Royal Rumble, and the dumb gimmicks they put him through as Kane, and he just keeps surviving just because people like the guy. They just like the guy behind it. I think maybe because we all know some of the bullshit ideas that they had him with, where they insinuated that he had sex with a corpse once. I mean, his character was burned alive. And then as his mask came off, clearly he wasn't. And they never did explain that one. But it's wrestling. I guess you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, nothing ever really gets explained in wrestling, as far as I can tell.
No, but former world champion, former Intercontinental champion, former main eventer, and from all accounts, a really good guy. A Republican mayor now of Knoxville, but even the people who are hardcore Democrats seem to like the guy as a person. Maybe you don't agree with his politics, but people like Glenn Jacobs. So I am super happy for Glenn Jacobs, the man. for this to happen. And on the same day they announced this, the great Khali. You know how when they say, like Floyd Mayweather is pound for pound the greatest boxer of all time? You know what they mean, because he's like 135 pounds, so if you just sort of like put greatness out by the pound, this would be him. Well, Khali, I'm guessing, is about 380 pounds, and I'm going to say he's the worst wrestler pound for pound. He sucks. You ever see him?
Yeah, I've seen him before. It was always weird. Like, I always thought his muscle structure was weird, because he never wore a shirt. It's always like, I don't know. He seemed oddly built for someone doing that. And it didn't look like an athlete. He just looked like a big guy with he had a huge chin, too.
Well, he did have
his chin was like.
He did have that killer chest, though, right? Like his chest. I mean, he didn't have very defined arms or legs, but his pecs were incredible. They still are, I think, from last time I saw him. He's aged in his face, but his body looks the same. I mean, you would think that he would just sort of like bloat a bit, but he really hasn't. But he's the guy who's supposed to penetrate the Indian market, and apparently he's a big star in India. He was in their version of Celebrity Big Brother. Maybe he was more entertaining there than he was here, because this guy just stunk. I've never seen a guy 7'3", and I know it's all fake fighting, but I think if he hit me, it wouldn't hurt. He just couldn't throw a punch to save his life. He's the worst. But, all right. India market, I guess. I honestly, that's the only thing I can think of. Is maybe they've got some different rights for the WWE network. In India, I don't know. I got nothing.
He is the first Indian to hold a title in WWE's history, so.
Yeah, that's true, and there's that. And at least, like he really is from India. A lot of the time when, wrestling history, you'd have Indian wrestlers who weren't really from India. All the time. There used to be a guy.
I tell you,
Go ahead. Yeah.
My buddy Kofi Kingston, they've forgotten the fact he's from Jamaica because he's actually from Ghana via Winchester, Massachusetts. But he didn't figure anyone would know what Ghana was. So he decided to be the happy-go-lucky Jamaican guy when he got in there.
Until they rebuild him from Ghana, West Africa. I like how they did it, from Ghana, West Africa, because they figure people are too stupid to know where Ghana is. Which maybe some people are.
Definitely.
I always thought that was like super funny. But whatever. Yeah, they used to have this wrestler when I was in Calgary Stampede Wrestling called Muckin Singh. And he was actually the guy who played him would later be Bastion Booger, which is as awful as it sounds. But Muckin Singh claimed that he was from India. I think he claimed he was from India, but he was a white guy wearing a turban, and his group was called Karachi Vice. Because it's Miami Vice at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wrestling. And then there's.
That's how wrestling. That's how wrestling was me. So
I was thinking almost all those 80. You could look at some of those stereotypes then, and now they're all sort of the good guys. Everything would be completely reversed. I don't know that an American patriot gimmick like Hacksaw Jim Duggan would fly today.
Yeah.
It's a very strange time we live in. And strange times leads to high times, which leads to Rob Van Dam, everyone's favorite wrestling pothead. I did that one well. Big star in Extreme Championship Wrestling. Yeah, thank you. became the first ever wrestler to hold the ECW and the world title, WWE world title, when they rebooted ECW. And he finally got to WWE in 2000, I want to say 2001, stayed there till 2007, and finally became world champion in 2006 when there was a lot of internet fans who really wanted to push RVD. And then they finally did, and he finally beat John Cena, which at a time when nobody was beating John Cena. And then a month later, he got busted for drug possession, not pot, hash. Took the titles off him. Pretty much everything went to shit for him. I don't want to say everything really went to shit for him. He's one of those happy-go-lucky guys that just never seemed to care that much. I think if he could have just been a little bit more political, which is to say a little bit, because he really wasn't, he could have been so much of a bigger star. And it's so funny to say, because a lot of his wrestling you see in a lot of the wrestlers today, a lot of high flying, a lot of risk taking, a lot of unnecessary use of the chair. You always throw a chair at him and then chair at an opponent. Opponent would just hold the chair. Wow, because it reflex, you hold it, and then you get kicked in the head with it. I don't know why you wouldn't just drop the chair, but I don't know why Wile E. Coyote always fell for the shit from the Roadrunner. They just did. But I'm very happy. Very happy for two of these people. The third one, I know why, but so be it. Whatever.
I was going to say, this weekend, we actually took some time off. We talked about the Roadrunner, and we went hiking in a place called Starved Rock, which doesn't look like it belongs to Illinois, but it's a series of canyons, actually in Illinois. And we're walking along the edge of this canyon, and we're at the bottom of the waterfall, and I'm trying to lead the kids through this really narrow part without falling into the water. So my daughter had this stick she'd picked up, and I was like, just give me a stick for a little bit of balance. And so I'm walking along the ledge, and I slip a little bit, and I'm using the stick to try and hold myself up while I regain my balance, and the stick just snapped. And my son said that it sounded like a snap right out of a cartoon, like the most perfect snapping noise from a cartoon. And then he told me I fell like Wile E. Coyote. Like, it took me a moment to realize that the stick was snapped. I was there for a minute and then just went down and splashed into the water. So it wasn't very deep. But it was. As you just said that, just made me think of my son. Was like, yeah, you were like Wile E. Coyote. You didn't realize that you were falling until like a couple seconds later. So.
Well, Wile E. Coyote was not canceled, unlike his friends Pepe and Speedy Gonzalez. So there's that.
I think Speedy's been. I think Pepe's canceled. I think Speedy's been uncanceled at this point.
Well, they can just cancel Pepe. Enough.
I'm sorry.
They can just cancel Pepe anyway. I always thought Pepe sucked when I was a kid.
Yeah, but Speedy Gonzalez was like a national hero in Mexico. So that basically everyone on Twitter of Mexican descent was like, just stop it. You tried this 10 years ago. It fell apart. Nobody wants this, and everyone just kind of dropped Speedy Gonzalez. But Pepe, yeah.
Well,
so.
Yeah. Well, that's because the French sleaze on Twitter aren't very strong.
Yes, true. Yeah, the skunk Twitter is just not as powerful as it used to be. They didn't put up much of a stink. Sorry.
Damn it! Fuck, I can't. That's the second week in a row. I'm not going to top it. Should we go with the death march?
Yeah. Let's get the little bit of that out of the way, and then because we have the one very, very big passing this week. We had several actors we enjoy who passed this week. But let's start with work our way up. So, one today, one earlier this week. But anyway, so just to start, the Beige Mistress, we did lose a Hungarian choreographer named Agnes Raboz and a Hungarian singer named Eva Nagy. But none of them, we did not lose any athletes. So I'm guessing this week that she just took the week off. So I was on vacation, so she decided to do that as well. So for other folks who passed away this week, starting in the world of hockey, we had a member of the 1960 silver medal winning Canadian national team, Bob Knight, passed away. He's a left winger on that team and out in Squaw Valley. He passed away at the age of 83. We also had Bob Plager, who was a hockey defenseman for 14 seasons, playing from 64 to 78, mostly with the Blues, but also with the Rangers for a little bit, who unfortunately was killed in a car crash, I believe, this week. Yes, 2-car accident on Interstate 64 at the age of 78. So his brothers Bill and Barclay Plager also played in the NHL, and actually all three of them played together on the Blues from 68 to 72. So that can't have happened that many times in sports. Three brothers playing the same sport for the same team for multiple years together.
Didn't happen too often other than them. I think the Sutters, but there was like 6 of them.
There are a lot of Sutters.
There were a lot of Sutters, yes. All the Hansons.
Oh, yeah. Yes, the Hanson brothers, indeed. Going back to wrestling, Barry Orton passed away this week.
Oh,
the son of Bob Orton, brother of Bob Orton Jr., uncle of Randy Orton, passed away at the age of 62. Do you have anything to say about him?
Yeah. He had a talented undercard guy. He was one of those, what they call jobbers, but really enhancement talent, the more polite way to sort of describe them. Through a lot of the late 80s, early 90s, a pretty good wrestler. I had no idea for years that he was actually Cowboy Bob's brother. I mean, I guess should have known that. Although they didn't look that much alike, just they had the same gravelly voice. Barry O kind of got a rough deal. He said, he claimed that he got sexually harassed by Pat Patterson, Terry Garvin. So the two guys who were let go in 92 for that. And as for how much of that is true, how much of that isn't, probably a lot of it is. Not so much for Patterson, because Patterson apparently was you and I talked about him when he passed away not that long ago. He was an avid joker too, who kind of liked making people uncomfortable because he was gay and he could get away with that because of the power he held in that company. Whether he acted on it or not is still up for conjecture. Don't know. I don't want to sort of smear more of the dead. We've already talked about that. But Barry felt that he was held back because of it. And then he wound up settling with him. And then I thought, and they actually appeared on Donahue discussing all this. One of the more entertaining things ever is the Donahue show, where they're talking about all of this, and it's the weirdest, the most surreal thing to watch. I think you can still find it on YouTube. And Vince McMahon showed up himself to try and defend this. And there was one announcer there who said he got fired because he resisted those same guys. And there was Vince, in typical Vince, you were fired because you weren't very good. And Vince is getting booed, and he doesn't understand what the hell. Like, wait, people love wrestling, and it was just the wrong crowd. Superstar Billy Graham was there, and he later said that he lied because he said like he saw some people do things that he then said didn't happen. Bruno Sammartino, who hated Vince at the time, it was just the weirdest shitstorm ever. And then there's Elizabeth in the audience.
Oh, boy.
And no one in that audience knew who the hell she was. Where meanwhile, she was like one of the biggest stars in that sort of circle. It's the strangest thing. And then a year later, Barry O's wrestling for them again.
Yeah.
Which I guess is sort of sad that he felt he had to. I don't know. Wrestling's weird. It always was weird. That's a weird time. Yeah. I kind of hope next week I don't have another WWE inductee because I really don't want to talk about it. I will, but I don't want to.
Yeah, well, Barry O passed at 62. I heard he had a heart attack when he passed, but he's only 62 years old. So, from the world of music, we lost Don Heffington, who was a drummer, percussionist and songwriter, toured with. He was just one of those guys who toured all over the place. He was passed away at the age of 70. He traveled with Bob Dylan, Emmylou Harris, Jackson Browne, the Wallflowers, the Jayhawks, like tons and tons and tons of places. If you go through the albums that he appears on, are just absolutely crazy. Just a number of them. It's like something like 115, 120 different albums.
Jesus.
He was a drummer on. For everyone from like those ones I said to like Seals and Crofts to I'm just looking through everybody here. Adam Sandler, he's a drummer on Adam Sandler's Don't Tell album, Dwight Yoakam, like just tons and tons and tons of people all over the place. So it's one of those guys who's just always around. Actually, he's the drummer on Bringing Down the Horse, the Wallflowers, a debut album. So he passed away at the age of 70. He had been hospitalized for leukemia. Just one of the most, another one of those people, I guess a jobber, right? One of those people who's never in a band, but always around music and worked with everybody. And you never necessarily knew who he was, but you are very familiar with all of his work. So
just like a jobber, he make other people look good. Yeah.
We also lost two female record executives who were very important. First, Connie Bradley. Connie Bradley, who is Jerry Bradley, who was elected to the Country Music Hall of Fame a little bit ago. Jerry Bradley was head of RCA Records in Nashville. After he retired, Connie basically took over. She was basically she was one of the main people for country music, along with her husband, for years. She passed away earlier this week at the age of 81. Jerry is still alive, by the way. I had the wrong information. Sorry about that. But no, she passed away at the age of 81. And also Ethel Gabriel, a record producer at RCA Victor for 4 decades, produced over 2,500 albums, including 15 certified gold records, and produced songs by Elvis Presley, Perry Como, Al Hirt, Henry Mancini. She won all sorts of awards, like just one of the grand dames of the record industry for years and years and years. And in a very male-dominated industry, particularly on that end, her working, she started RCA Victor in 1940. Think how many women were involved in the music industry back in 1940. Very, very few. Mm-hmm. But she passed away at the age of 99. First female record producer for a major label and the first female A&R producer in the entire industry. And won a Grammy in 82 and produced 6 Grammy-winning albums. An absolute legend in record production. Just passed away at the age of 99. Not in any real hall. I mean, she's in the Rochester Music Hall of Fame. I feel like there should be more for a woman who had 2,500 albums that she produced in her career. Just my personal opinion on that one.
Is there like a women in music hall or something like that? If not, there should be.
There should be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's for us to do, but someone should be doing it.
No, we got our hands full.
We got enough. Someone steal that idea and run with it. Before we get to this, quick on the actors, Julie Pomogolski also passed away. She was the 1999 world champion of women's snowboarding. She passed away. She was only 40 when she passed. She was actually caught in an avalanche in Switzerland earlier this week.
Damn.
And died on the mountain at the age of 40. But when snowboarding was really becoming a big thing, she won the 1999 World Championship representing France and silvered in the giant slalom in 2003. So, not the way to go, but I suppose if you are a very accomplished skier or snowboarder, you're likely to put yourself in positions where the powder is very, very fresh. And when you're doing that, you always risk an avalanche. So unfortunately, she passed away earlier this week. And then, of course, before we get to the big one, I do want to just point out one character actor. Did you ever watch Oz?
I have. Yeah, it's been a while, though. I watched I think I binged it like through one run. So which character? I didn't know a character actor died on that. Who was that?
So Arnold Poet Jackson, Mums the Schemer, actually passed away at the age of 53. Born Craig Grant. He passed away. Sorry, actually only 52. Earlier this week. I watched some Oz, but it's been a long time. But I remember Arnold Poet Jackson as he was in like 49 episodes. He was one of those guys who was around for quite a bit of it. But yeah, one of those character actors who passed away too young. And then, of course, there's one of the greatest female character actors passed away today, Jessica Walter.
Yeah.
Lucille Bluth at the age of 80.
And also, I'm blanking on the character name, but the mom in Archer.
Yeah, and the mom in Dinosaurs.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I never watched that show. That show creeped me the hell out. First time
I can understand that.
Yeah, that was one creepy looking TV show. You know what? I just realized, and I didn't even know that was her because I was reading up on her. I'm a huge Clint Eastwood fan, so like I've seen every Clint Eastwood movies, even the ones where he's not killing people. Because if he's not killing people, it's not quite the same. It was Clint. He's got to do that. So the first one he directed played Misty for me. Well, he killed her in that because she was the psycho. I didn't even realize that was her. I read this cool thing too today. It was some award ceremony, and her husband couldn't go, so she brought her daughter, and she brought her to meet Clint Eastwood, and Clint says, "Oh, nice to meet you. I threw your mom off the cliff once." I'm not paraphrasing that very well, but I just thought that was pretty awesome.
It was pretty awesome. Yeah, so good. I mean, Jessica Walter, one of the best faces for reactions for memes, basically. Like, just somebody who everybody enjoyed. And you ready for this tie-in? She actually also played Eve Gallo on one episode of Just Shoot Me, the ex-wife of Jack Gallo, played by George Siegel, who also passed away this week.
I didn't realize he was that old.
So George,
at 87.
Yeah, 87. But he was probably one of the first Hollywood leading men who was Jewish and didn't change his name for Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Like he was just George Siegel the whole time. He won a Golden Globe for his role in A Touch of Class. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. But later, we'll probably know him best for his work on Just Shoot Me, and of course, probably for those who watch The Goldbergs,
Pops.
as the patriarch of The Goldbergs. I can't remember his character's name. I've only seen that show a couple times.
I don't know. I don't know what his. Oh, Murray.
Yeah,
No, it's not Murray. Crap. Marie.
It's Albert.
Albert
Pops Solomon. So, but another guy who, I mean, just a really long and wonderful career, and someone who is always enjoyable to see on shows. So George Segal passed away at the age of 87.
No, it's interesting.
And finally, I guess we get to the big one. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, what you said there, I didn't know that there was, that he was one of the first actors to keep his Jewish name. Of course, I didn't really think of, I don't know Jewish names, I suppose. Like, I didn't even think of Siegel as a Jewish name. I mean, it's just stupid. I mean, I guess it's like so obvious that it was, but I guess if it's not like Fishbaum or Goldstein, I don't think about it. It's not right there. But then also, why would I care?
Right.
I don't care about that sort of thing. But I guess back then they did.
Right, but you have to understand, though, when he was starting acting, we're coming out of McCarthyism. And the whole Hollywood blacklist was just basically, are you Jewish? And if you are Jewish, then you're a Russian spy. So when he started, I mean, all that stuff is the late 50s. He's starting in the early 60s, 3-4 years after the height of all the stuff going on. So it was, in many ways, more on the forefront of the minds of people at that point than it would be for us now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. It's just, well, obviously it's one of those things you don't think about. God, I'm going to do another wrestling tie-in. So you talk about the Goldbergs, and then a regular guest star on that, Bill Goldberg, former pro wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
If you would have think there would have been anyone who would have been asked to change his name, because wrestlers always change their name, you'd think, all right, here comes Goldberg. And he never did. And then you look at him like, you call yourself whatever the hell you want, man.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Well, I mean, Kofi had to be up there too, because Kofi Kingston's real last name is Sarkodie Mensah. That's just way too much for anybody to say. So,
yeah, exactly. It always amazes me what people change their names to sometimes. Like Engelbert Humperdinck, his real name is Arnold Dorsey.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, I guess the main event here is, I hate saying the main event of a death march, but yeah, Elgin Baylor. I knew he was good. But it amazes me now that I'm thinking about it, just how under the radar good he was, considering we have a 10-time first-team All-NBA player, which is disgusting. How many people can say that? And a career Laker. And yet, those two things, he's a bit under the radar, I guess, because A, he didn't win a title with the Lakers, and B, because of when he played. And you as a Celtic fan can explain that better than I can with Bill Russell.
Well, he was he went to the NBA Finals 8 times and was 0 for 8 because he ran into Russell and the Celtics every single time.
Right.
So, just one of the true great early players, and Russell was despondent. It's amazing with all these people passing away. Russell's birthday was earlier this week. I think he turned 87. It's just amazing. Like, at some point, all these guys are going to be gone. Like, Jerry West is still around, and Russell and a few others. But, like, Kuzi, Kuzi's going to be, he was in my dad's college class. So Kuzi's going to be 93 this year. So, but I mean, like, all the early guys are leaving us from the early NBA. And Baylor, of course, is also probably better known for his work as the GM of the Clippers. A lot of people at this point.
I want to talk to you about this because, like, that, I was reading so much. I was more focused on his time with the Clippers because of just the whole Donald Sterling fiasco that we all sort of became aware of a few years ago. And I think as basketball fans, at the ages we are, we could say longtime basketball fans. The Clippers have always been utter garbage or hot garbage. A team that I has never been close to the finals, even when they were good. which has only been recently. And they were never good with Baylor as their GM. So under Baylor, they were only twice in the playoffs. And he was their GM for, over 20 years. So you almost might be thinking, well, I guess Baylor wasn't very good. But everyone in the NBA knew what we didn't know at the time. Nobody wanted to work for Donald Sterling.
Right.
And it didn't, I think it had to be. It didn't matter how great and how beloved you were. And this is what I kind of want to ask you here. Because I was reading a lot how I think he was only the second person to be named second African-American to be named a general manager of an NBA team. And he held that for, as I mentioned, a long, long time. Does he stay knowing that, A, he's kind of underpaid, B, he's not going to attract the best free agents because they know who his boss is, but does he stay because he wants to keep things open for other African Americans? Because he doesn't want to fail.
I mean, it would not surprise me if the answer to that is yes.
Mm-hmm. And also, too,
think how slow the development or the ability of African Americans to get general manager jobs, not just in basketball, but across all sports.
Right.
It's there are just so few of them. In baseball, maybe I'm wrong right now. The only one I can think of is Ken Williams. Is there another one that I'm just not remembering?
I off the top of my head, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I mean, they're probably. I'd like to think there is, but off the top of my head, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean there are just that many still across all the sports. For how many African American athletes there are in every sport, just the amount of people at the. I mean, the Rooney Rule's been in existence in the NFL for how many years, and we don't have any more than. I don't know the most recent count, but usually it's no more than 4 or 5 non-white coaches. Not even just African American, just non-white coaches in the NFL. So it wouldn't surprise me knowing where he came from and knowing what they had to struggle to get through, that he was sticking around working for a guy he knew was a racist a-hole, because if he didn't, it would look like African-American folks wouldn't be able to do the job, even if things weren't going the way he wanted them to go.
And I don't think he also came out of the NBA rich, because it didn't matter how good you were. You weren't making major dollars in the NBA when he played. Black or white. You just weren't.
No.
So I'm sure there's also, I can feed my family. Because we're also thinking, when we're looking at this from a 2021 lens, athletes now can make so much money just on memorabilia, signing their name to things. That wasn't really happening back then.
No. Well, what did we determine, or what did I bring up last week? The backup quarterback. I can't think of one of the backup quarterbacks who started 9 games his entire career has made $33 million in his career. I can't think of who that was off the top of my head.
I can see it. Yeah.
You played for the Bears, the Lions. The name is just escaping me. But he's made $33 million for 9 career games.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. I guarantee you that
Chase Daniel.
At least 15 times more than he made in his entire career. Probably more, 30 times more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, that's the way things have changed. So.
And the one I am sort of happy though that he didn't get labeled as a failure as a GM, because knowing what we know now, what the hell is he going to do? It's like the Knicks GM right now. His name is escaping me, but how hard is his job when players are saying, "I ain't working for Dolan"? Not that I'm calling James Dolan a racist. I'm not. I'm calling him an incompetent boob.
Yeah, right. I mean, just look at the Mets now that they have new ownership. People want to play there again.
Absolutely.
Nobody wanted to be there when Fred Williams was there.
Right. Right, because that's, I think, a huge part of that. And if what we're saying is correct, yes, he made a pretty good living at that, but he was very much underpaid, as was shown from a lawsuit that he did, and he was vindicated with everything that sort of came out. I mean, Donald Sterling is an interesting character. There could be, I would love to see a TV movie, or not TV movie, I'm dating myself, or like a Netflix movie on just the inner workings of this very strange individual and what goes through his head. How are you this much of a racist, and yet your mistress is half black? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of that happens. So just think how many misogynists are married. Like, it's easy to make an exception in one case and still have a belief about a whole group of people, which is bullcrap.
I guess.
So
I can't rationalize that in my head. And
yeah.
So, and maybe that was also part of why Sterling had him. It's like, well, I can't be a racist. Look at my top executive.
That also may be true. But let's get off of Sterling and back to Elgin.
Yeah.
I went back and looked at Bill Simmons' Hall of Fame pyramid from his book of basketball.
Okay.
For back in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think Baylor ranks in his? So he ranked 96 players at that point.
Okay.
96 being Tom Chambers.
Yeah,
where do you think Baylor can be?
I've read that book, but it's so long ago, so I don't remember. Let's see. 14?
You are really close.
Okay.
15.
Okay.
14 is Havlicek.
Okay.
Who also just recently passed away. So he was right behind Havlicek, right ahead of Julius Erving.
Damn.
That's pretty good company to be in. I mean, just absolutely one of the absolute best players in the history of leagues, even with other people coming in, because LeBron is further down on that list, and other people will have popped up ahead of him, but he's still one of the top 20 players ever to play basketball.
I didn't even realize, too, his college accomplishments, because Seattle Redhawks, so winning the Final Four, like most outstanding player, Seattle didn't win. I never even heard of the University of Seattle.
Well, they went down, I believe. Because, again, I have a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet of every team that's ever qualified for any of the postseason tournaments and how they've done.
Mm-hmm.
I have to update it for this year. But, yeah, Seattle, I think they and NYU used to be big into it, too. And they both went down. And I think Seattle's bounced back up again. But they went down for, to NAIA or whatever for, 20 years, if I'm remembering this correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And they were down for quite a while. So when we were watching all of college basketball, because college basketball really became important probably to both you and I in the 80s with
yep.
I mean, one of the first things I remember is Georgetown, St. John's, Villanova, fighting everything out in the Big East there with Ewing and Pat and Chris Mullen and all those guys, Raleigh Massimino's team, and that's also when they expanded the tournament. But a lot of the stuff that happened before that wasn't quite the same, and I think Seattle just kind of dropped down. But yeah, the fact he brought Seattle, I mean, Bill Russell had San Francisco there, the Dons. But the fact that he brought a team like that, which basically hasn't done anything on the national scene pretty much since he left, is pretty amazing as well.
It's incredible. Just great player, great guy, long life. Just one championship away from really getting, I think, a bigger name. He might be one of the biggest basketball players ever, I would say. to just not sort of have that level of fame that he deserves. Because even around that same time, people I think hold Oscar Robertson in higher esteem.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And I don't know that they should.
Yeah.
And it's not, again, this is not a shot at Oscar whatsoever. But RAP to the big man, you'll be missed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Robertson, by the way, is number 10 on that list.
Number 10, okay. Who's number 1 again? I forget.
Yeah, so just it's Michael Jordan. So it's Jordan, Russell, Abdul-Jabbar, Magic, Bird, Chamberlain, Duncan, Kobe. Because Kobe, this is 2010, remember? So Bryant and Kobe and Duncan were still playing.
Yep.
West, Robertson, Elijah Wan, O'Neal, Malone, Havlicek, Baylor, Irving, Pettit, Moses Malone, and then Karl Malone at 18. Charles Barkley and LeBron came in at 20.
I had no idea Jermaine O'Neal was that 21. Good.
That would be Shaq O'Neal.
Oh, okay. the other O'Neal.
Sorry, Tatum O'Neal. Sorry.
Oh, God. Hey, you can vote for Amanda Wurlitzer on the fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame.
Yeah, people have been doing that. The numbers have picked up on that ever since we did this other Hall of Fame. So, hear me out. Infinite Hall of Fames means infinite votes. So if we just keep making more of them, people are just going to keep voting.
Yeah, so we have to do the women's rock thing that we just said?
Maybe. I don't know. Is there a curling Hall of Fame? Can we create one? I don't know. Is there a...
Sure there is.
There probably is.
I'm sure there's got to be one in Canada.
Curling is a great sport, but...
Got to be one in Canada.
Yeah. Curling is great. There's got to be one. Curling is a great sport. I will say, in a couple of years, I've thought about it now. I have a intentionally small yard. The previous house I lived into, this one, it took me almost 3 hours to mow the yard, just because of the way it was put together. So this house I have a bigger house and a smaller yard, but my backyard is like perfect in terms of width and length for the winter to set up a curling rink. And I'm seriously considering doing that in one of these upcoming winters. Just setting up a 1-lane curling rink for people to practice on. So
last time I played was on an outdoor rink out in Jasper.
Last time I played was in Laurel, Maryland, at one of the U.S. National team training facilities. But they had a deal. You could go up there, and for like $15 a person, you got 4 hours of curling, and then breakfast and a beer, which was a Molson Canadian, afterwards, which seemed like one of the best deals ever. You had to get up at like 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning, but who cared? You were done by like 10, and you had breakfast and a Molson Canadian, and you had 4 hours of curling.
I can honestly tell you that many breakfasts I've had have been Molson Canadian. I've actually done that. Yeah. But wow. I guess my new segment's the hammer. How did this happen?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good one good thing to end with. So we got off the death roll and into the stock up, stock down. I like it.
Elevator up.
Oh, elevator up. Excuse me.
Yes, it's elevator up or elevator down. Elevator up. See? Who's my elevator? Yes. So who's elevator up? And this is just for Hall of Fame stuff. Who had the best week that could potentially get that individual into their respective Hall of Fame? And I've got my elevator up for someone who's actually having the worst year of their professional career.
That's an odd first person to start with, but please enlighten us.
Yes. Statistically, they're bad. So bad that it wouldn't surprise me if this is their last year in the NBA. Now today, as we're recording this, probably not when people are listening to this, it's the NBA trading deadline. Raptors, I'm happy you kept Kyle. I know he's going to be a free agent, probably somewhere else, but I like Lowry. I like him a lot. But my guy is Rajon Rondo, who for this year...
Yeah. Well, there's a reason he's not... The reason he's not playing well. He's been in Atlanta. Are they ever on TV?
Well, that's a very good point, because Atlanta is actually pretty good, should be playoff bound. But yes, Rondo only sort of does super well when the lights are bright. But what does he have left? Now, the trade itself, I think, is a horrible one for the Clippers. I think it's terrible because they gave up Lou Williams and a pair of... Lou
Williams is a complete and utter liability in the playoffs. Lou Williams could not... I remember a few years ago when Yi Jianlian was trying out for the NBA. They couldn't get anyone over there, so he did a whole bunch of moves against the chair. That chair would score 30 points on Lou Williams.
I would still rather
He's
have...
entirely unplayable in the fourth quarter.
This year, I would disagree. Because Rondo's been worthless.
Right, this year, fine, but we're not in the playoffs yet.
Okay.
Yeah, Rondo can't shoot well. There's no question about that. But he distributes the ball very well. He's not looking for his shot first. And his defense is probably a little overrated, particularly at this point in his career, but he actually knows how to play it. Lou Williams at this point, or at any point in his career, cannot play defense. He's entirely unplayable in a close game when you need his shooting because he can't guard anything.
But Lou Williams isn't going to be on the court late. He's basically there to take the heat off.
But Rajon Rondo will.
Okay.
That's different.
This is going somewhere else, but I like this trade for Atlanta. I think where he steps in for Trae Young is going to be really good for them. And Atlanta's got a lot of good defensive players, as do the Clippers.
True.
Now, this reunites him with Tyronn Lue. We'll see. And if he pops a couple good games or even just a good quarter, then it's worth it. And we just ragged on the Clippers' history, but the Clippers are an NBA contender, more so than the Hawks.
Agreed.
Yes, so if Rondo wins, even if he doesn't do anything, even if he stinks, that's 3 NBA titles. And as time goes by, you tend to forget what role they played. Rondo, you and I have talked about how he's been a bubble guy for a long time and probably trending on the wrong way, but winning that second title with the Lakers was massive for him, for any chances he has. Getting a third ring, no matter what he does, is part of it. As long as he's not sort of like playing Juwan Howard role, which means nothing, like 1 minute in the final game, just so that he could play, say, I won the NBA title in the finals and I played in it. Rondo's going to play more than that. But if Rondo has one of those moments, this is his biggest and last chance, in my opinion. So elevator up.
Interesting. I was surprised when he signed with Atlanta in the offseason as to why he would go there. But now that he's been traded, maybe it was just, hey, I got a contract and a job. It was like 1 year, $7 million. Remembering correctly. That's off the top of my head, so I may be wrong on that. That's what I have in my head for what he signed for. This is very good for his career. I agree.
Yeah, so that's the one I think is the biggest beneficiary potentially for this topic. I'm really excited to see some of the other transactions, but that's sort of for another time. Now we got elevator down. I got a sound effect for that too here. Oh, that went a little fast. That's my favorite sound effect of all time.
I was hoping that was going to be the sound.
Oh, was it? Okay. My favorite sound effect ever. Now, this man is not really considered in the Hall of Fame conversation because his career is still very young. He's only 25 or 26. But one of the most exciting players in the National Football League. You probably already know who I'm guessing. You probably know who I'm going to say. It's Deshaun Watson. And no matter how this plays out, and you and I talked before off air, because this is really fascinating. No matter what, this is a bad paragraph in your Wikipedia. And it's a stink.
Yeah.
It is a stink on your life, whether it's true or not. And right now, we don't know. We don't know much more than we did last week when we talked about this. We just know the numbers.
Other than the fact that there are a whole bunch more people allegedly accusing. And I say allegedly accusing because all of them are sealed, and the lawyer is not allowing, according to the defense, is not allowing them to find out their name in private so they can start investigating. So again, the whole thing is, if it's true, this is terrible for Deshaun. If it's false, it's also terrible for Deshaun, but it's really bad for the Texans. If it's true, it's really bad for the Texans too. There's no winners in this story whatsoever.
And when this lawyer, I forget the name of the prosecuting lawyer. Well, you're the law expert in this pairing. So this is not the police haven't been involved in this at all, right? This is just a complete civil suit.
Yeah. So the NBA is investigating. The lawyer is requesting they investigate, but as far as I can tell, not much has happened. I know the lawyer for Deshaun Watson, I joked he's the only lawyer in Texas, Rusty Hardin. Mm-hmm. Rusty Hardin is making a big stink about the fact that he thinks the third accuser is someone who's already tried to extort, I can't think of his name. It just fell out of my head. Deshaun. You already tried to extort Deshaun, and they already have this person on tape, and if that person's no good, then they have to question everybody, but that's just lawyer speak. But, this whole thing is so weird because everyone who knows Watson is pretty much coming out saying this would be ridiculously out of character for him. Again, that's not necessarily meaning anything because people live secret lives we don't know about. The whole thing just is weird. Why now? Why is it all coming out now? Why is the lawyer who's bringing all these cases the guy who lives next door to the Texans? Why is everything sealed? What is this? There's just so many questions. And I don't want to be the person. It's entirely possible that these are all true. It just, everything seems so fishy and strange that I don't get what's going on.
And why does he keep hiring masseuses named Jane Doe?
Well, yeah.
Okay, I thought that was funny. I guess that was only me. I don't know what to say here. I really don't. I think you pretty much said it all. This is the strangest thing, and I don't think there'll ever be another time ever, especially in the whole Me Too movement, where there's 16 accusations on somebody, and you and I are so quick to say, well, I don't know. And it feels awful to say that, but because of everything around it, I got to hear more.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's an awful thing to say, but I got to hear a hell of a lot more because we really don't know very much about any of this other than a couple sounded pretty awful, but this is probably going to be settled out of court. We're probably not going to hear a damn thing.
Right.
Would be my guess. So that's my prediction. This gets settled out of court. He's due to get $10.5 million this year, 22, I think, the year after. Something very, very lucrative. His endorsements, I don't know what his endorsements are now. They're gone. For at least the next couple of years, unless he completely wants to go through with all of this. And does he? I mean, more often than not, these things just go away because you just don't want them to get any messier than they are, even if you think you're innocent.
Mm-hmm.
So prediction number 1, this never sees a courtroom. Prediction number 2, Deshaun Watson feels someone gives him this horrible advice and says, tell everyone, okay, just make a statement, say, I'm going for sex addiction counseling. It's going to happen. I just don't, unless this all completely goes away, but I don't see how with the two high profile, nice English, Kirk, lawyers that we have. It's just gotten so big and strange, and as you said, there's no better word for this than weird. And so many strange questions around all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Well, his reputation isn't going to recover from this at all, unless it comes out that this was one giant smear job. I don't see that happening.
Smear jobs rarely get fully put out there. People always still believe them years afterwards. This whole thing is weird, but I agree with you. This is definitely going to affect his Hall of Fame chances one or another. Playing for the Texans affects it, so this is certainly going to affect it even more. Yeah.
It's a very strange thing. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about it more next week because there's just going to be more things that are going to come up. He could be the first ever two-time recipient of the Hall of Fame loser elevator. Hall of Fame loser elevator? Yeah, why not? Or first two-time recipient of elevator down. We'll say that.
There you go.
And it's a very it's so bizarre. I don't even know what more to say. Other than, I really hope all of this isn't true. And then I question myself, how much of this is my fandom coming out? Because I'm a fan of this guy.
Right.
And I don't want to sort of like be that guy, that person who just doesn't want to believe credible accusations, but we don't even know much about the accusations right now. We just don't.
That's part of it too. There's just so many weird things swirling around it, and they could all be true and it could all be coincidental. And I don't want to, again, neither of us want to minimize.
No, not at all.
If it's true, neither of us want to minimize it, but there's just so much weird stuff we don't know. So
then going forward, so let's say part of this is true, and then at this point, now what does the commissioner do? Because that's the next step. Does Deshaun Watson because he could still get suspended if what I predict is true will happen. This is settled out of court. Mm-hmm. Does Goodell then feel pressured, or does he? What's the precedent here? I guess Roethlisberger, which was a worse crime.
No, the precedent is Deflategate. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. He can just suspend it for as long as he wants.
There's that too. And what's the right suspension?
Again, I mean, I'm the Patriots defender here, but that's what Deflategate ultimately was about. Mm-hmm. They lost in court in the first level because they said in open court, we have no evidence that anything actually happened. We can't prove it. And so they said, well, then you lose. And then they appealed saying that, well, it doesn't matter whether it happened or not. The question is whether we have the right to do it. And the appeals court said, yeah, according to what was collectively bargained, the commission can suspend anybody at any time for any reason. There's nothing players can do about it. Mm-hmm. So if that's the situation, he can suspend them for as long as he wants.
So, and what would that be? Again, we can't even suggest what that might be because we don't know enough of everything. If it just goes away now, is there? Because yeah, you're right. He can suspend anything for anything considered detrimental to the league's image, which this is. Mm-hmm. So he could potentially suspend him for what? What would be accurate based on what we know now? A year? It's not impossible.
How long is Ray Rice suspended?
Indefinitely. I think he's still suspended. You can't go by Ray Rice, though. Ray Rice is something everybody saw. There is no court of public opinion that can sort of defend that. And I've heard people say, well, you don't know what she said. I don't care what she said. I don't give a shit. You can snap, maybe you push back. You do not cold cock somebody. They hit their head on the rail or the wall. I forget what, because I'm not going to watch it again. And then you calmly drag her outside the elevator. Fuck that.
Right, but he was suspended for 2 games originally. And
True.
then when the video came out, they changed it.
Yeah, no.
I doubt there's going to be any video of any of this, right?
Oh God.
So,
the way things are, with the way how camera phones are, just in the last 10 years, there could very well be.
I mean, there's video of Bob Kraft that got thrown out because it was obtained illegally.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that there's something called the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's that?
The thing with Kraft. So any evidence you get through fraud, if you basically lied to get something,
mm-hmm.
Then any evidence you get from that, like if a police break into someone's house and find evidence, then any evidence they find is now the fruit of the poisonous tree. It could have been planted, you never know, or whatever. So for the case for Kraft, the Florida police called in a fake bomb threat into the masseuse parlor.
Oh,
and then set cameras up as part of that fake bomb threat while they're clearing the building.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
And then the video happened. That's why that video got thrown out. Again, partially Kraft was on it. I understand that. But it's the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. Like, they had no reason to set cameras up there in the first place. They didn't have a warrant to do it. The police called in their own fake bomb threat to set cameras up in that place, which you cannot do. So that's why it got thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and again, Bob Kraft is good lawyers.
Yeah, and I think pretty much going back to the main court, the court of public opinion, Bob Kraft, I don't think really got, well, you would know this better than I, being a Patriots fan and being part of that circle. I don't think he really got ridiculed for that long. And he's widowed, right?
Yeah, he's not married.
Okay. So personally,
I think the bigger issue was the police also lied about the fact that there was sex trafficking going on in there, which they also had to walk back. So that was a bigger issue for a while, that he was involved in a sex trafficking ring, which was also not true. The police did not exactly cover themselves in glory in that case. So, like I said, I think that within the next 2 or 3 years, Bob Kraft's going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
I think that's just delayed his induction by a couple of years, and particularly since this new TV contract, Bob Kraft basically negotiated for the league.
Well, that'd be an interesting thing. What does he get in first? The Pro Football Hall of Fame or the United States Athletic Hall of Fame?
Good job tying it up.
Thank you. So, yeah, Deshaun Watson, unfortunately, no matter how this works out, this is hurting his Hall of Fame chances. Whether he was obviously right now he's not a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he has the talent
Correct.
to do that, and this is a stink that he will never get rid of ever. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be this asterisk that we don't know how big this asterisk is going to be. We really don't know. And you're right. There's no winner in any of this. This is just awful. No matter how we look at it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's close that off. The elevator is shut. Next week, yeah. Next week, we don't know what we have, but we'll have something because we always do. We at least know we have 2 segments.
Yep.
Oh, I know. I already know what we got. So in addition to our 2 segments, because these are hits, the people have spoken. Or so I believe. Baseball season starts on April 1st. I'm going to put together a bunch of stats, a lot of these milestones, and we can look at the milestones that some people really need to hit or could hit that will help them make the elusive Baseball Hall of Fame, unless for whatever reason we decide we hate them.
Makes sense. I do have to say one last thing about baseball. Mm-hmm. As we were driving down to Starved Rock this weekend, you get out in the country, so you lose your radio station. So we go flipping through, and there's like a Jack FM, one that we play anything type music station. Mm-hmm. And they had a little promo, and they said, we're getting excited for baseball. We're gearing up by watching C-SPAN. I was like, oh, poor baseball.
Well, it's the radio station's here. It's you watch the Blues Brothers, right?
Of course. My father-in-law was in the Blues Brothers, driving one of the trains outside their apartment. So I've seen all the movies that my father-in-law has, or most of them that my father-in-law drove a train in. So.
Okay. Well, so you know that when...
Wait, I didn't tell you this before?
No.
I haven't told you this before?
No.
So my father-in-law was a motorman for the CTA here in Chicago for years and years and years. And I believe he was one of the few guys licensed to drive pretty much any type of train in the U.S. Like, there are fewer than a dozen of them. He's one of them. So anytime there's a train scene in a movie or a TV show from, like, 1977 through, like, 2012 or so that took place in Chicago, he's driving the train. So everything from the Blues Brothers going back and forth outside the house to the fight on the train in The Fugitive with the one-armed man, mm-hmm. to the scene from Ocean's 11 where Matt Damon pickpockets the guy and then George Clooney pickpockets him back on the train, and he got yelled at for not making the train shaky enough for that scene. They needed him to make it more shaky. Yeah, he tried to remind them that it was unrailed. It's hard to do that. To like any scene from ER, mm-hmm. He's driving all those trains. The Adventures in Babysitting. There's an old movie called Mercury Rising with Bruce Willis, where there was originally going to be called Simple Simon because Bruce Willis was taking care of a deaf mute kid, and they decided not to go with that title. It went with Mercury Rising instead. So he's been 100 or something different movies as a train driver.
Damn.
So, and anything take place in Chicago. Yeah.
Look at that.
It's my father-in-law, John Bloom.
Huh. Well, my father-in-law doesn't speak English, and I think he calls me asshole. I'm not really sure. But that's a story. Well, my point was, where they go into Bob's Country Bunker and Jolly at Jake saying, so, excuse me, miss, what kind of music do you play here? And she goes, well, we play both kinds, country and Western. Well, pretty much the radio stations here are the same. They play both kinds, soca and dancehall. Don't have people aren't in bad moods. So sometimes when I need to get on my sort of grunge or just hear some loud guitar, you're not going to find it by putting on the radio here. Mm. Not the best close we've ever had, but it's a close. It's an ending.
It is a close. It is indeed.
All right, with that.
All right, man. I will see you next week. Hopefully I won't fall in any bodies of water in the meantime. But
let's hope not.
If I do, I'll make sure I'll let you know.
All right. Just call. There's only the one body of water. I guess it would be Lake Michigan, no?
Yeah, no. I fell into the river this last week, so that was all.
All right. Explain that next week.
I'll talk. Yeah. Anyway, I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Stay safe, everybody. Safe, everybody. Safe, everybody. Safe, everybody. Safe, everybody. Safe, everybody. Safe, everybody.